Look, I'm unstoppable.
This an all-out blitz, real hard hits. Them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm one of your hosts tonight, Matthew Briggs, and as always, I got my amazing trio. But right now, Crenshaw is on his way to talk to us, so he'll be a little late. But right now, with me, I got VT, the space legend. Say what's up, VT.
What's going on, guys?
And guys, if you listen to 610 down there in Houston, you know this guy very well. We got Mr. Brandon K. Scott with us. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys. I appreciate y'all for bringing me on to have a discussion about the Texans. So I'm doing good. I'm actually at NRG Stadium right now for the Texas Bowl as we speak. And so if y'all hear a little bit of fireworks in the background, that means somebody must have scored. Or if y'all hear some noise in the background, that's somebody from the PR department letting us know of an injury update or where the ball's at or something like that. So this is actually a real life sort of insight into what it's like during a Texans game in the press box when it's actually happening, because basically it's the exact same thing happening right now.
Well, maybe one day we'll join you up there, Brandon. Maybe one day, you know.
Yeah, I'd love that. We got a whole row at 610, man. So it's plenty of space for y'all, man. We got to make it happen.
Yes,
awesome.
Sir. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. We were a little late because we wanted to show respect to the national anthem. The national anthem was playing there where Brendan's at, so we took the respectful way out, and we took a moment of silence before we came on. But man, God, do you have a good Christmas?
I really did. It was a really good Christmas for me and for my family. It was a busy one because we worked. I worked a lot. I had Christmas Eve. The days leading up to Christmas Eve, we had shows. We've been covering games. Obviously, there was a game on, on Christmas Eve. The NFL took over the Christmas Day schedule, which the real estate normally belongs to the NBA. But with Christmas Day coming on a Sunday, the NFL came and said, let me get that. And so it was and for me as an NBA guy and an NFL guy, I just enjoyed the entire day. I got to consume all of it. I enjoyed every bit of it. So it was a good Christmas day, sports filled, family filled, more importantly. And I got 3 little kids too who were able to enjoy it as well. We've had a rough year as a family, just a number of personal challenges. And I was really glad to see them, at the very least, the kids who have nothing to do with what the challenges are, right? They just have to experience it with us. I'm glad to see that they were able to enjoy it, man. So it was good, man. I hope the same for you guys.
Yes, sir. It was great, especially since the outcome of Saturday.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah.
Made Sunday feel a lot better, right?
A little bit. Well, let's kick it off, man, with some NFL news. We kind of got a lot that is kind of evolving the Texans, so we'll just we'll kind of jump into a little bit and then dive into the Texans part. Nathaniel Hackett got fired earlier this week.
Yeah.
Brandon, I'll start with you. Were you surprised or not really?
Not surprised that he got fired. I was fully anticipating that he would get fired at some point, but more than likely, I thought it'd be at the end of the year. I thought there was a case to do this weeks ago. I mean, there were very early signs of Nathaniel Hackett not being the guy, not exactly being the answer for the Denver Broncos, even in his first year. So I would say I was a little bit more surprised in the timing, but you figure if you're a team, and this is instructive for the Texans as well, I think, especially Texans fans to think about, But if you're a team that's sort of already made that decision, that already knows what the future either is or is not, that this particular coach is not the guy that's going to lead you into the future, then it makes sense to get that head start. We saw the Texans do it 2 years ago with Bill O'Brien. They got the head start. Now, it was a little disappointing that they were the first to fire and the last to hire a coach, and then the one that you ended up being somebody that you hadn't really honestly heard of, right, in David Culley. But that point aside, you kind of understand why, if that's the direction that the Broncos were going to go in, that the timing of it would make sense, that they would want to get ahead of things. And it's not like there was a mystery there. Nathaniel Hackett way in over his head. The Broncos got a lot to figure out. I was just talking about this on the radio with some of my co-hosts and colleagues of like, man, we were expecting the AFC West to be, at least I'll speak for myself, was expected to be like appointment television this year. Like I wanted to watch every game that every AFC West team played, certainly against each other, but whoever they played. And then it turned out to be not the case, especially with the Raiders and the Broncos even more so in a lot of ways. So huge disappointment with Russell Wilson, huge disappointment with Nathaniel Hackett. They have a ton to figure out there. And honestly, guys, I'm not sure how much of a, like how quality of a job that is. And I'm surprised to even be saying that, given the history of the Denver Broncos, given the history of even Russell Wilson prior to this year. You would have thought that that would be a job, if it was going to open up after 1 year, that folks should be knocking down the door to get. And now I'm not so sure. I'm not even so sure if that's a job that you want, because you're stuck to Russell Wilson, can't get out from under that contract for a long time. And if you do, it's extremely cost prohibitive. You know, one way or another, it's going to mess you up. So I'm very interested to see not just the fact that they fired Nathaniel Hackett, but what their plan is to replace him exactly, and who that person is that's willing to take on that job.
All right. Well, we got Crenshaw gracing us with his presence. So, Crenshaw, I'll jump to you, man. What do you think?
We're talking about the Nathaniel Hackett on firing, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
It was time. I mean, since the Monday Night Football game, that's when I knew that he wasn't going to be the coach. I think that they only hired him because they thought it was going to get Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers. Mm-hmm.
And I think once that didn't work, Nathaniel, his time was limited. Now, if it had a good season, like made the playoffs, maybe he could have stuck around. But I think they made the right decision to fire him now so they could, jumpstart their head coaching search. I don't think Sean Payton's going to be the guy. I think they're going to get maybe like Dan Quinn, because Denver like getting defensive coaches. I was actually shocked on the Nathaniel hire, but I think Dan Quinn's going to be the coach over there.
All right. BT, what about you?
Well, like Brennan Scott said, basically, I knew that he was going to be gone. I just didn't think they would do it now when there's only 2 games left. That was kind of strange because there's 2 games left. So what are you gaining by it? I assume the only thing that, really that they're gaining is that they have more time to look for another head coach. That's the biggest thing. We all knew he was done. Now, the question remains now, who's going to be there? I also do not think it's going to be Sean Payton. Right now, the rumors are that he goes back to New Orleans, which I honestly don't really believe either. But regardless, what's interesting for us is that there are now 3 coaches that lost their jobs mid-season, right? We got Carolina, we got the Colts, and we've got Denver. Does this mean that we are more likely to get rid of Lovie Smith? Because the narrative in the past 2 weeks was that we may keep Lovie, especially since we just got this dub in Tennessee. So I feel like the narrative has been building that we should keep Lovie, even though I think he should be gone. I think both him and Pep should be gone. But I think that now that Hackett is also gone, this could potentially give them a little more fuel to say, "Yep, we let Lovie go," without getting the backlash that I expected them to get.
Brian, what do you thought about that on BT's?
I think that's a good thought, just in terms of the way that they're comparable. I think is the fact that they would both be firing the first-year head coach, and so and I hate to characterize it like this, but let's not forget the climate and environment in which Lovie Smith was hired in. Mm-hmm. There was a lot going on with the Brian Flores lawsuit, the the allegations of either racism or racial insensitivity, or not considering or giving black coaches the proper opportunity or the proper chance, firing David Culley after 1 year, Brian Flores with his own sort of feeling of how maybe he was slighted and all of that. And so it certainly felt like, as the Texans were about to hire an inexperienced, and obviously Josh McCown played almost 20 years in the NFL, but had never coached beyond high school, and really even that was volunteer work. Like, it was going to be hard to sell in an environment like that, specifically the inexperienced white head coach, hiring him after you've gone one and done with the black head coach.
Right.
And honestly, to me, it's a difficult sell to do the same thing with Lovie Smith. But the one thing that you can sell, no matter what color the coach is, what race the coach is you win one game, you win 2 games in a season, and you can always make the case for widespread sweeping changes within the organization. And so that's what and of course the Broncos have won more than 2 games, obviously, but it's not working. They hit the eject button on it early, and I think that the Texans could very well do the same thing. Now, it is interesting to see. I'm not sure if that story is actually fully written yet, or if we know. I'll tell you like this: I don't have a good sense or a good beat for what exactly the McNair family, Nick Caserio himself, the general manager, what they're feeling exactly about Lovie Smith and his status as the head coach, whether they are putting any weight into these last few games or not. I probably got some thoughts on whether they should and what that would actually mean and how that reflects on the process. I don't love that for the process. If these last few games, one way or the other, whether it means you fire or keep them, to me, I feel like the decision at this point should have probably already been made. They should have been able to do, long story short, they should have been able to do enough analysis and evaluation at this point to know one way or the other whether they like Lovie Smith going forward next year or whether they don't. To me, it should not matter exactly how these last few games play out, but we'll see. We'll see exactly, but it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to the next topic. A lot of benching this week. You got Derek Carr over there in Las Vegas. Carson Wentz is to make the start in Washington. Brian, I'll start with you. What benching of the quarterback has you scratch your head the most?
Well, I don't know if any of them have me scratch my head, because when a quarterback gets benched, it's normally because of performance and you have a reason to justify it. And I think that you can justify it with any of the guys that have been benched, specifically the ones that you mentioned, to Heineke in Washington, and then, of course, Derek Carr in Las Vegas. Now, Derek Carr is obviously the bigger name, the more established player, has been a staple there for, hell, we're coming up on a decade now. I mean, Derek Carr was drafted, about 8 years ago now, about to be 9 years ago now, pretty soon. So obviously he's been a staple there, as I mentioned. So that's got to be probably the more surprising one. And I'll go back to the point that I made earlier about the AFC West, thinking that, this was an appointment television type of division. Every team, including the Raiders, to me at least, was going to be worth watching every time they played. And like the Broncos, maybe not to as a drastic degree, but certainly like the Broncos, it has not been the case for them in Las Vegas this year. Derek Carr leading the NFL in interceptions at this point, not something that I would have had on my bingo card. Obviously, the quarterback here, Davis Mills, at one point when he was benched, that was the case with him at the time, at least several weeks back, right? He was leading the league, or at least toward the top of the league in interceptions. Didn't play for a couple of weeks, so was supplanted in that. But when that's the production that you're getting from your quarterback, I mean, you can easily justify going in a different direction. Now, I don't really love it, because I think Derek Carr is very central to the identity and the culture there with the Raiders, for better or worse. And I'm really interested to see how they're going to play this going forward in the offseason, if they're going to move on, if the Derek Carr era there is over, I don't know exactly what this means for his future. I'll have to look more into that and give that a little bit more thought. But if we're gonna pick one that's more surprising, it's got to be the more established guy in Derek Carr, who's done some things for that franchise. And you would have felt like, honestly, I mean, they trade for Devontae Adams, his college teammate, his friend, and you think, okay, this was a team that sort of found its way into the postseason last year, and all they really did was add Devontae Adams. And so you would think that that would be an improvement. I know they've had some health issues, but you would think that would be an improvement, and that hasn't quite exactly been the case.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could chime in on here, let me say this about Carr. I actually suspected, even though they signed Adams, that they were preparing to move on from him. They kind of protected themselves with that contract. So with the contract, they only have a $5.26 million dead cap. It's very, very little. I don't know another franchise quarterback that ever had a contract like that. And if they get rid of him, they save $30 million in cap space. So it's clear that they want to protect him from injury to try to move on from him, get a late round pick. I don't know what they'll try to get out of him, but contract wise, anyone who picks up that contract can get out of it pretty easily. He could end up being released, but likely will go for a late round pick is my guess. So I'm not necessarily surprised they did this. I'm actually more surprised, to answer your question, Matt, about Washington, because Washington is, in the hunt. Heineke, I think, was doing all right. And Wentz has a history of performing poorly in those big light situations. To use the phrase that Sean Bajani used, when the lights are the brightest. As he said last time when he was on the show, he has a problem. So I honestly am more shocked about Wentz picking up the mantle there than almost anything else. And obviously Tua is not benched, but he's out against the Patriots because of his concussion the third time. So, we've got about, I think three quarterbacks, if I remember correctly.
And of course, Ryan Tannehill is not playing again.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, but he's been out last week. You're right. So, yeah, I mean, really, it's really Taylor Heineke that surprises me that he's not getting the start. Otherwise, other than that, I'm not surprised at all.
Crenshaw, what about you, brother? Speak to me.
Yeah, man, got to be Derek Carr, man. Got to be Derek Carr. I mean, like, this guy is the franchise. He's been Mr. Raider. He's been there through all the thick and the thin. Like Brandon said, I mean, all they added was Devontae Adams, which should have been way better, and the team took a big step backwards. I don't know if that's coaching or what's going on over there, but it got to be Derek Carr, man. I mean, Taylor, I knew that little hype, that little hype they had, I knew that wasn't going to last long, but Derek Carr, man, this is a phenomenal guy. Like I said, I'll take him in Houston in the heartbeat. I know VT, you don't like that right there, but I'll take Derek Carr next year on the Texans. Easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a Carr guy too. Last year he was putting up some great numbers, led his team to the NFL, and all of a sudden he turned to a pumpkin. It kind of seemed like Josh McDaniels had a little play in that. I mean, you can see, you go back to the history of the teams he led as a head coach. The quarterback really never does anything great. So I don't know. We'll find out. Well, guys, moving on. One of the legends in Houston is calling it quits in 2 weeks. Played his last home game. J.J. Watt announced that he be hanging up the cleats. I mean, what a career, right? I mean, off the field, on the field, the dude was a beast. I'm glad the Texans was a part of that career. Brandon, talk to me. What's your thoughts, and what made you remember him the most?
Yeah, man. Like, where do you even begin with a guy like J.J. Watt with a career like that, right? For my money, and I love Andre Johnson. I'll tell you guys, just in full disclosure, you didn't ask this question, but Andre Johnson is the reason why. Like, I'm from Houston, born and raised in Houston, and I'm gonna root for things with Houston attached to it, no matter what. But Andre Johnson is the reason why I became a Texans fan. I had a little bit of hesitation, skepticism when the organization first started, and was like, I don't know about this just yet. I needed to be sold. I needed to be a little bit convinced, even though I was always going to support. But to go out full on fandom, Andre Johnson was the one that brought me in. But J.J. Watt's the greatest Texan of all time, and I don't think there's even a discussion to be had about it. And that's with respect to Andre Johnson and the career that he had. And so, I mean, that just goes to show you how great of a player J.J. was.
Brady,
3 times.
real quick before you go on.
Sure.
We're in this group called the AFC South Fan Battle. It has all the AFC South teams. These Colts fans are saying that Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis was twice the player J.J. Watt is. Are they on?
I mean, of course they're gonna say a thing like that. I mean, I think fandom, and we can be guilty of this in some ways sometimes as well as Houston sports fans, as Texans fans more specifically, of just being biased, of being, just stuck in our own sort of echo chamber and
Have the blinders on.
Just kind of have our blinders on, tunnel vision, and just believe our own BS. And so I think that's a lot of what that is. But I mean, nobody thinks that they would be alone. Let's go outside of their own echo chamber, and even leave Houston out of it. Let's not go to Indianapolis or Houston, just for the sake of this argument, just for the sake of this discussion. And nobody's gonna talk like that. Nobody's ever gonna say anything like that. Like, if you guys can remember, and I know you can, going back to the J.J. Watt, the height of the J.J. Watt experience, let's just call it 2014, okay? Not only was he the best defensive player in football, okay? He won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 4 seasons, okay?
Runner-up MVP.
Runner-up for MVP, and legitimately in the discussion for best football player, period. Like, not best defensive player, not best defensive lineman, not best Texan, none of the qualifiers. Best football player in football was in the discussion. Now, you can quibble with who the right answer is, whether it actually was a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. There's a short list of guys that would be on there, but J.J. Watt forced himself into that discussion by batting balls down like a maniac, by getting 15 to 20 sacks a season, by becoming an offensive weapon on top of all of that, especially in 2014, which is something that's somewhat easy for me to forget about and take for granted just because of how great he was. It was like, hell, of course JJ can do that. JJ Watt can do anything. And so I think at some point I was even less impressed by it. Maybe not less impressed, but taking it for granted because it was so normal for us after a while to see it. Yeah. So J.J. Watt normalized greatness here in Houston, normalized greatness for Texans, and spoiled us 100%. There are so many memories. I mean, you can just go up and down the list. We've revisited a lot of them on Sports Radio 610 over the last couple of days. Obviously, the welcome to Texans lore moment would have been his rookie year against Cincinnati, the pick 6. And I don't even know if then we fully realized or understood.
That's what started off right there.
But and that's what started off. But I don't think we knew at the time exactly what we were getting ourselves into. At least I'll speak for myself again. Right. I didn't know. I didn't anticipate it. And then sure enough, I mean, he goes on to become one of the greatest football players to ever walk the face of the earth. The guy should be able to moonwalk into the Hall of Fame once that time comes if he wants to. I've been saying this, guys. This is kind of my main takeaway, and I don't even think this is a hot take. But, like, unless the committee wants to, the Hall of Fame committee I'm talking about, unless the John McClanes of the world and everybody, all the dignitaries who are a part of that, like, just want to go out of their way to do this J.J. Watt presentation thing of like the case for J.J. Watt to the Hall of Fame, unless they just want to do that as an intellectual exercise to honor J.J. Watt for their own edification, whatever the reasons are, go ahead and do it. But it shouldn't be necessary for a player like that. Like, can you imagine somebody trying to sell you on the case for J.J. Watt, the Hall of Famer? What an absolute waste of our time. Just put the guy in the Hall of Fame. We ain't got to really talk about it if we don't want to, unless we want to. But like guys like J.J. Watt, Tom Brady, whenever he retires, imagine that. Imagine we sitting up around at a table and gonna pull a packet out and I gotta sell you on JJ Watt.
Well, I mean,
you on Tom Brady. That's ridiculous to me. Just put him in there when it comes time and let's go on.
Lawrence Taylor had pretty much the same career, just a little bit lengthier. Yeah. I mean, he was first ballot Hall of Famer, so yeah. I mean,
some of these first ballot guys, it just the conversation just feels like life is too short. What are we doing? What are we talking about here?
So
Lawrence Taylor, JJ Watt.
Right. Before I move on to VT, real quick, does he sign a one-day contract to retire with the Texans? Yes or no?
I wish I knew the exact answer to this, and in full disclosure, I've got a way to contact JJ Watt, and so I've actually reached out to try to see what his response might be to such a thing. As you can imagine, he's been really busy. He has not gotten back to me on this just yet. So, but I do know JJ on a very minimal basis and have a very minimal sort of but positive relationship with him. Would love to hear from the horse's mouth himself. But if you're just asking me to guess, I would say, why the hell not? Like it just makes a lot of sense to do. He is synonymous with this franchise, with this organization, like I mentioned before, and with the city, the community, the people. So yeah, it would be surprising. That's Cody Stoops behind me of the Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5. He is also in the building with us as well. But it would surprise me a lot if that effort at the very least wasn't made.
Okay. BT, real quick, what about you? What do you think?
So first of all, JJ Watt, there are lots of memories that I have. One of them is the Bills playoff game. We needed that juice, and he came up with that juice and sacked Josh Allen. And I really think that was part of that momentum to get us to that win. There's many, many memories that a lot of people have of JJ Watt. I was listening to 610 today when you had all the callers call in. I was a little taken aback about one of the guys that was saying that he wanted his daughter to marry him since the day she was born.
A little uncomfortable, right? A little uncomfortable with that.
It was a bit uncomfortable, but for the most part, they were pretty amazing, and I agree with almost everything that they're saying. JJ Watt was a symbol for this franchise, even when we've gone through tough times as we're going through now. And you can tell just by what we're talking about that the conversation kind of stopped about the draft and stuff when he retired, and it all became about JJ Watt. That tells you how important he was to this franchise. And what I'll say is I'm going to put my neck out there and say I would almost have it as a guarantee that he retires with us. He means that much to Houston that I would be shocked, disappointed, and incredibly upset if that did not happen. I know that he wants to. I have a feeling that he wants to make it happen, so I can't see why it won't.
Crenshaw, what about you, brother?
I'm gonna pick it back off B. Scott. Andre made me become a Texans fan, but Justin James White is the greatest Texan of all time. This guy literally put us on the map. He's the reason why people tune in to the Texans. That Bengals game, that pick six, like you said, I didn't know what we had. And then the following week against the who we played the following week, the Ravens. The man was a monster against the Ravens. We should have won that game. TJ Yates, 3 interceptions, but that's another topic. Justin, he knew how to find the camera. Anytime the camera's rolling, he knew how to do it for the camera to keep us, in tune, engaged, and everything. I really wish he could have played his entire career here, but I mean, dream to play his entire career here. So I get it, but greatest Texan of all time. He should be Hall of Fame next year. We should have to wait 5 years for him. But it's going to be pretty interesting because him and Brady are going to be in together, so that's pretty cool. And hopefully, I could be in Canton to see this live.
Oh, I'm going if it happens. Oh, yeah,
we should all three got to go.
Right.
We should make a trip out of it, man. Like I'm actually glad that y'all said that. Like you're gonna be in Canton to try to make it happen. I've never been to Canton. I've been to Ohio a lot. My dad's from Ohio, but never been to Canton. Would love to go for this moment. Like if you're gonna go, we even did this, I think, as a segment on the radio at some point. Like it might have been the show before me of the Houston sports athlete who, when they go to the Hall of Fame, who's the one that's worth you making the trip yourself personally to go watch it for. I don't think there's a better case for any athlete, at least in our lifetime, than J.J. Watt right now.
Y'all hit the nail on the head. I mean, the dude was he was the poster child of NFL for American football. Like he was the great American guy who eat like the Hulk Hogan, eat your vitamins, say your prayers. He was that type of guy for the NFL. And what a lot of people forget of that 2014 run he had, he led the NFL in pass deflections as a defensive end. Like who does that? Who does that? And not like I get Aaron Rodgers had a hell of a season, but like he led the NFL in sacks, led the NFL in pass deflections. Had what was it, Crenshaw, 7 touchdowns or something like that?
Yeah,
Like
seven offensive touchdowns. The only reason why he didn't win it because we didn't make the
because we didn't
playoffs
make the
that year.
playoffs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we didn't make the
we
playoffs.
was 9-7, but he should have won it, man. Aaron Rodgers got enough
Yeah,
of those. Give it to JJ, man.
yeah. Three times defensive player of the year, dude. Yeah, Hall of Famer easy. I agree with you guys. Well, fellas, going on to the game, Texans versus Titans. Before we do that, one of the best players this year, Larry Tunsil, has come out and said he wants to be the highest paid left tackle in the league. Brandon, I kick it off to you. Do we do that? Do we ship him off for more trade capital for the draft? Because, in the rebuild, it's kind of hard to give that kind of man that kind of money, but what would you do if you were Nick Casario?
It's really one of the more interesting questions and propositions that we have out there because you obviously want a guy of that caliber on your team. Okay, you want to lock up a guy like that, and especially if you ever. I know that there's room to disagree on exactly what to do with the number one overall pick if they get it. And even if they don't, what to do exactly with the quarterback position next year. You got different folks with different sort of minds on what Davis Mills could be, on what the Texans should pursue from a quarterback standpoint. But whatever it is, like no matter what our disagreements might be and where we might stand on it, you're going to need a quarterback at some point, whether you feel like you got him on the team or you need to go get him on the team. And once you get him, the whole reason why you went out and traded the farm for Laramie Tunsil in the first place was to protect the quarterback that you had in-house, the franchise quarterback that you had in-house at the time. And the same logic is going to hold true fast forward to whenever you feel like you have that guy in-house again. So if you don't do it, you're still going to need to figure out that position and what direction you're going in, because it's just as important as anything else, as any of the other high priority positions that we'll talk about with the Texans over time, namely quarterback. Okay, we concede that that's the number one, the main position on the field. But past that, I mean, after quarterback, it's basically what? Pass rusher and left tackle, the blind side of the quarterback. I mean, and you can quibble on which one is more important, but certainly those would be like
yin and
1A,
yang,
1A, 1B, or 2 and 3, however you want to characterize it. So if not Laramie Tunsil, you need to find an answer there. And I feel like if it's not Laramie Tunsil, I'd like to hear what your answer is. Now, for some people, the answer might be Titus Howard. And I've been of that school of thought as well of, hey, maybe once you move on from Laramie Tunsil, you drafted Titus Howard in the first round. Let's see, going on 4 years ago now, 3 years ago, going on 4 years ago now, with the potential to be a left tackle. Now you ended up moving him to guard, and you've kind of jacked him around from tackle to guard and guard to tackle, and done sort of this musical chairs thing with his position, which I think has been bad for his development. And credit to him for still at least being a decent player despite all of that. But I think it is one of the more fascinating questions, not to bail out of the question that you're asking, but I think it's one of the more fascinating questions to answer, both for us as a fan base to sort of decide what our priorities are, for media and fan base to decide what our priorities are in terms of team building, but also for Nick Casario himself. Like we had Laramie on about a week ago now on the show, and he's not shy about this sort of thing, about wanting big money, being motivated by money. We know this, okay? We know what time it is with Laramie Tunsil. You can feel about how you feel however you want to feel about it. But Laramie Tunsil is here to get paid. He's going to go out there and play at a high level. Now, the false starts and some penalties here and there are going to be part of the experience, but he's going to go out there and play at a high level. And in turn, that man is going to expect to get paid. And the story that my colleague, ESPN's DJ Bieneme, had on the website on ESPN.com today was that he wants to reset the tackle market. And that is of no surprise. He essentially said as much when he was on with Landry and Landry Locker and John Lopez on In the Loop again last week on our station on Sports Radio 610, that the man is ready to get paid and that he's going to negotiate his own deal, and that's what he's looking for. Yeah, man, I would do it because, and this is just me talking, I anticipate that they will go in a different direction at quarterback. But even if they don't, even if they believe in Davis Mills, my man needs somebody to protect his blind side. Whatever they do at quarterback, they need to do either Laramie Tunsil himself or a guy like that. And I'm not sure if they have the exact plan. I'm not sure what they exactly think of Titus Howard, if they view him in the same light as I do. And there's plenty of room for disagreement on that, on whether you think Titus Howard could be your franchise left tackle. I'm just sort of spitballing there because it seemed like they drafted him with that potential. And from what we've seen of him when he's played left tackle in limited snaps and a limited sample size, dude's been pretty good. So I mean, not Laramie Tunsil level, obviously, but there are some business decisions to make there. I would just go ahead and do it. Number one, just to say, because the Texans are going to have money now. Like we're past the point where they're in cap hell and they can't really spend any money. Now, maybe fans want to go see them spend money on somebody else, on different players, on newer players, but this is a priority. They do have the money now. They also have the draft capital to address other areas if they want to say, hey, we don't want to use one of these premium picks that we have coming up in the next couple of years on a left tackle when we already have used, mind you, a number of premium picks to go get him. Plus, we've paid him once. Why don't we just go ahead and pay him again and use these picks to go and supplement the rest of the team? That, to me, makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. Crenshaw, what about you on the Tunsil?
Well, like B. Scott said, he's motivated by money, and I think that's the reason why he's playing his best football. But if you think about last year, when he missed 11 to 12 games, did any of us miss Tunsil last year? So I feel like that we can still be a good team without him. I will put Titus Howard there and get another guy on the right-hand side.
Heck hasn't been playing bad. Heck has been pretty good the
Yeah,
last
I
couple of
mean,
weeks.
yeah,
Last week.
Heck must been he must have been training with his dad or something because he's gotten way better. And save that 19 mil that we could get from Tunsil, trade him, get some draft picks, maybe something like what Christian McCaffrey got. You got 3 picks for him, and build a team like that. I mean, I like Tunsil. I feel like once he gets paid, like right now he's saying all the right things. Once he gets paid, it's gonna go back to like, I'm gonna half-ass it out here, and I don't want that for the squad, man. So that's my take on Tunsil.
All right, BT, we know you're staying, but go ahead and tell.
Well, you know that me and Crenshaw are like the tame version of Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, right? Very rarely do I say that there is a decision that is so easy to make that it would be foolish to make another decision. I know that a lot of people say that about drafting Bryce Young, that it's an easy decision. My last article, which, by the way, go to TexansFanBattle.com and read it, which is why the Houston Texans will not draft Bryce Young. So, but on this decision, it is absolutely ridiculous to, in my opinion, not to extend Laramie Tunsil. He is the second, if not the best pass protector in the league. He is a phenomenal player, and I understand the concerns about his commitment level because he did, quote unquote, quit on the team last year. I was very upset about that as well. So that is a valid concern. However, we will be drafting a quarterback. Now, I don't think it's going to be Bryce Young. My personal opinion is that it'll either be Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. It could be someone else, or we could grab a vet. Either way, that quarterback needs protection, and you would want to give your quarterback the absolute best possibility to succeed. In addition to all of that, who else are we paying?
Right.
We're not going to be paying Brandon Cooks. He's gone. So if you think about it, the only big money that we have to dish out is Laramie Tunsil. Titus Howard is probably going to expect $16 to $18 million. So if that, I don't know if that happens necessarily, but if you think about it, we have two players on this entire squad that needs big money. And if you don't pay your best player that will essentially could be a Hall of Famer, I think it would be a Bill O'Brien level a mistake not to extend Laramie Tunsil.
Oh, okay. I love it.
I think getting wide receivers is helping out your quarterback over getting, paying Tunsil. I just feel like I don't know, man. He's good, but he's not that good. VT, he's not that good, bro.
He's pretty good though.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
But he's pretty good at one thing.
He is all pro.
But okay, what about his run blocking? Is he good at that?
He's not elite at run blocking, but he's elite at pass protection.
I want to let me actually jump in on that, because to me that was the biggest question mark on him as a player, and more than anything, it's not like is he good at it or is he not? Is he committed to it? Will he do it? Will he get in there and mix it up? Because like y'all have seen Laramie Tunsil, like the dude is just like physically special, kind of similarly. This is the only comparison I would make between him and JJ Watt. The only one, okay? They are, for guys that size, playing in the trenches along the offensive line or defensive line, they are somewhat physical anomalies. Like physically, I won't say anomalies, but physically special specimens, okay? And Laramie Tunsil is right along in that ilk. When he commits to it, when he really tries, when he's really bought into it, yes, he is and can be good at run blocking. Sometimes my man just don't seem all that interested in it. And I think that's, speaking to Crenshaw's point, I think that's a legitimate concern.
He's kind of a mixture of J.J. Watt and Javion Clowney. Like, he has the potential to be great, but is his work ethic there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is that motor exactly right, what you want it to be? But I don't know, man. I think that the production is there, the money. Like I see what Crenshaw is saying. Like maybe just use that money somewhere else, and maybe you can like just better allocate the resources and figure it out. I will say this: I've never thought that you needed, and this was my objection to trading for him in the first place, or at least not trading for him necessarily, but giving it up as much as they gave up to go get him or to go trade for him from Miami. I don't think that you actually need an elite left tackle. You need a left tackle that doesn't suck. You need a left tackle that's not terrible, that's not going to get your quarterback killed. But I don't actually think that you need a left tackle that is as good as now. I do think Laramie Tunsil is great and like really, really good to great. But I don't think you need a left tackle that is necessarily that good. But if you have one and you are in a situation where you're not paying anybody and a lot of your talent, the talent that we're going to be relying on and evaluating and hoping gets the Texans out of the dog days, most of it is going to come from guys through the draft because that's where their resources are primarily. And so they're able to spend this money. The question is, where should they spend it? And Laramie Tunsil is not I don't think Laramie Tunsil is a bad place to spend it, right. But certainly I'm fascinated with the idea of, and this again, just me talking, fascinated with the idea of replacing him with a left tackle that is, again, doesn't suck, but isn't quite as good as he is, and therefore is not quite as expensive as he is. I am intrigued by that possibility, and I'm curious to see what Nick Caserio's strategy is going to be.
Well, the only thing I'll say something real quick about it, and we'll move on. But the only thing that kind of has me enticed of trading him is this draft is probably one of the best positional player drafts we had in a long time. Like, there are great players all throughout. Defensive ends, linemen, cornerbacks, like they're all spread out. Third round, second round, fourth round. Like, it's very rare do you see a draft like this deep of players that are going to be good make an impact. So, I mean, it's a gamble. I mean, just like Crenshaw said, we signed him. He's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go sit back down for 14 games and collect this paycheck. Or, we go out and get a guy and he is a bust. He's the next Isaiah Wilson dropping his mixtape. Like, it's a gamble. So, either way, I'm happy with it as long as it makes my team better, Jumping to the game, 19-14. Brandon, tell me what was your thought of this game? What was the highs and what was the low of this game?
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. It feels like so much has happened since that game was played. Like
Right.
a whole life. It feels like a whole life has been lived. You feel me? Like it really does. But man, I was first of all, I was surprised to see how well they competed under such circumstances. I mean, you're talking about the cold. You're talking about the hour-long delay. You're talking about going up against a team where their formula to beat you, I think, fits perfectly into the environment that they were playing in. Cold weather, wind was going to be a factor. Throwing the ball was going to be somewhat of a challenge. And why even try? Rookie quarterback making, limited starts. It made his first career start just a month and some change right around there prior to that, and we saw what that.
I think it was the last time we played us was his first start. Correct?
Yeah, that was his first. That his first career start was against the Texans right here on the other side of this window that I'm looking at right here at NRG Stadium. And if y'all remember, they had my man throwing the ball one time in the second half. They ain't trust my man to do nothing. They might as well have one of us out there running the offense. That's the way that they played it. Like, hey, man, we just hand that bad boy off and make good reads. Don't turn the ball over. Don't drop the ball. Don't fumble the snap, and we'll be all right. So going from that to this, I thought just the way that the Titans are built, that they were sort of perfectly positioned to win a game like that, to punish the Texans in a game like that, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I was a little worried about it because I'm like, man, the Texans don't really tackle all that well, and the Titans ain't going to really be throwing it all that well because they got Malik Willis out there. It's cold. It's windy. Like, this is just going to be painful. It's going to be painful. They're going to be having to try to wrap up Derrick Henry all day. And then, of course, both teams go 3 and out, if I'm not mistaken, on their first offensive drives. But then that second one, when the Tennessee Titans get out there, Derrick Henry goes for that, what was it, like a 48-yard run or something like that? And you're like,
here we go.
This movie already. I don't really know if I want to watch it again. I know how it ends for my rooting interest. But credit to the Texans, man, for going out there and bowing up and playing a damn football game, like, in a way that, like, I can just say these last few weeks, honestly, they have played a watchable, respectable, and more importantly, a physical brand of football.
The youth movement is what you see.
Dude, I was worried if they were really about this life, man. Like, and so they've been doing it the last few weeks. I was impressed to see it. Obviously, like you mentioned, my man, the youth movement. And I don't know if I can say enough for it, because it wasn't that long ago in this season. It was just only a few weeks ago where I was questioning, like, are these rookies developing? Like, I like their draft picks, but are they being coached up? Are they developing? Like, can we feel good about where we're at?
We've been saying the same thing. And all of a sudden, here they come.
All of a sudden, here they come. You get Christian Harris gets the interception. Jake Hansen, to me, that was the play of the game, because the play could have very well just been over with, or he could have just wrapped up and made a form tackle. And my man makes that conscious effort at the end of the play to try to get that ball out. Play of the game for me, especially for one of the nondescript, non-draftee guys. When we talk about the youth movement, we're normally talking about the draft picks. When we talk about all seasons, we get hung up on draft picks. Who's your draft pick? Is that draft pick developing? Was Kenyon Green worth the number 15 overall? That type of stuff. But hey, look at Jake Hansen out there, unheralded, and out there making plays for you. So credit to him. Man, I was just really proud to see them go out there and do that, especially under the circumstances. I thought it was a difficult one. And if I'm honest, just not one that I really thought they were going to excel in. I did not see this happening. So, and I'm always, when I say bad things about the team or when I pick against them, I always preface it by saying, look, I don't mind being wrong. I ain't so arrogant that I got to be right about everything. I'm probably wrong half the time, right half. I'm probably batting right around 500 anyway.
500, right.
You got just as much of a good chance of me being wrong as you got a chance of me being right. So
you got that Lovie Smith coaching record right now.
Huh? Yeah. Hey, look, I wish I had that. I wish I had that Lovie Smith paycheck to go out there and
right.
I'm feeling bad for Lovie Smith. Hell no, I don't feel bad for Lovie Smith.
Get paid.
Lovie Smith living good, his family eating good. I don't feel bad for him at all. But back to the game, and it was pleasant to see again the youth movement. I've always felt like all year the formula for them winning games was exactly what you saw. You need to get after the opposing teams, not just quarterback in this sense, but just their offense in general. And you need to get to the ball. You need to find creative ways to get opportunities. And I don't want to stop before I give credit to a guy that I've been highly critical of, a guy I'm skeptical of, and just frankly do not believe in terms of the future of the franchise, and that's Davis Mills. Like, I don't think that Davis Mills is the guy. I would not invest in him as the quarterback of the future. Let me just be clear about that. That's just how I feel about it. But you got to give credit where credit is due, okay? And Davis Mills, over the last few games, has had his moments. He's had some bad moments, okay? Fumbling at the end of games. Hell, even the fumble that set up the score that Rex Burke had, like, in that case, better to be lucky than good, right? You're right in the right place. Rex Burkhead just happens to be there. It haven't even all been good. I'm saying this as I give him a compliment. But one thing I liked about it is that he seems, or has seemed, I should say, in the last few weeks, Davis Mills has seemed more fearless or less fearful or less hesitant to rely on whatever physical gifts that God gave him, however limited it may be. Like, he seems to be trusting that a lot more. And that's all I've really ever asked of him, especially this year, is to, man, trust yourself. Go out there and play, man. Like, you're a third-round pick. It's highly unlikely that you're the future of this franchise anyway, even though they gave you this opportunity. Go out there and sling it, man. Go out there and live a little bit. And I thought that for way too much of the season when Davis Mills got his first opportunity before they went to Kyle Allen, which now I'm looking back at, I was in support of at the time, and I'm like, no, maybe they just could have gone with it. It's going to be bad anyway. They just kept going with Davis Mills. But I didn't feel like he was trusting enough. I thought he was in his own head. I thought he was overthinking at times. And the one thing that I can tell that's different about him now in coming back into the lineup is that he's trusting himself, his athletic ability, and just sort of letting it rip and just going out there and playing. And that's what I wish he had done from the very beginning, honestly.
All right. BT, before I kick it off, Crenshaw, what you got?
So, speaking of giving credit where you normally don't give credit to a guy, I got to shout out to Lovie Smith here. The defense balled out. You mentioned, B. Scott, about Jake Hansen, and he didn't have to strip that ball out, right? He could have just wrapped up and let it go. But it was Lovie Smith's insistence of takeaways, where we actually got that. So, everyone that's listened to this podcast knows that I've been on Lovie Smith for the past month or so. I got to throw him up to here. The defense balled out. Jalen Petrie, who had a couple bad tackles, missed tackles in the beginning, he adjusted. He ended up having a pretty good game, leading the team in tackles again. Double O showing up with 2 sacks. It was weird that you didn't see the normal dudes balling out other than Petrie. Right, we didn't have Jerry Hughes making a lot of plays. Collins didn't make a lot of plays, but you got Hansen.
Bernard with a huge hit in the backfield against Derrick Henry. That was huge.
Yeah,
Bernard had that huge hit.
Shout out to the Titans for not even blocking him. But
4-yard tackle for loss. That was a great play. So these are players that we have not seen make plays really for the most part all year. And they made plays in this game. And I will say, B. Scott, I called this game. I said it was going to be 17-14. It ended up being 19-14. So it's damn close. It's interesting what they did in the previous two games, the Titans, now I'm talking about, they continue to do here, which is they stopped running Henry. And I don't understand necessarily why. He's been 17 carries for the Jags, 21 against the Chargers, 23 against us. And I see that as a trend, and now he's out, or at least doubtful. So I think he has had some injury issues in the past 3-4 weeks, and he was playing hard still. Well, but that's what I saw, and we took advantage of that.
This Sunday, they're sitting their whole team because they're getting ready for the only game that matters to them is the Jags game. So that's why they're sitting all of them out. So
I believe that to some extent. But why would against the Chargers and the Jags earlier on did you not use him in the fourth quarter?
If you watch those games, every second half, even with us, he fumbled the ball, and it changed. It changed the momentum. Like the Jaguars were getting their break speed off by him. I mean, Derrick Henry was running almost 200 yards a game on him, and he fumbled that ball, and that's when the Jaguars jumped all over it and took advantage of it. So I think that's why. But
okay, fair enough. I mean, he did have a fumble here too, right? So all his fumbles happened in the past month.
Yeah. Crenshaw, bust them out. Get those flaming hot Cheetos, Ray. What's up? Get spicy with it.
Well, first, I got a question. This is for all of y'all. Okay, so on that, first of all, I'm with you, B. Scott. I don't think Davis Compton Mills is the guy at all. And I think by him sitting down and coming back, that's making him better. Same with last year. But on that fumble, wasn't Rex Burkhead out of bounds first? How was he able to be the first guy to touch the ball and be a touchdown for us?
Well, as long as you reestablish, like, and they explain that on the broadcast too. Like, as long as you reestablish, then it's a perfectly legal. Texas PR looking at me like, what the hell is this guy got going on over here? As long as you reestablish and you're back in bounds, you're perfectly allowed to do what he did. And so, and I think he barely reestablished. Like, you can even
it was real quick.
You can have a debate there, but the explanation is that he reestablished, I think.
Oh, okay. And we usually don't do game balls on this pod, but I'm gonna give him the game ball to 0045 because I can't pronounce his name. So I know he's from H-Town. How you pronounce his name, VT?
Oh, hey, it's Obo Okoronkwo. Now, how you pronounce his actual real first name, I don't know, but he just goes by Obo for his first name.
Obo, okay.
So it's Obo. Obo is easy enough, and that's what we all just call him. Just call him Obo.
Okay.
But it's Obo Okoronkwo.
That with him right there, he's really been playing pretty good. I think we should bring him back. But the game was good. I mean, after that long Derrick Henry run, they kept them intact. Maybe that was more of Vrabel just not running, Henry as much. But like I said, I'm gonna give Compton Mills some love. He went 9 for 9, had a touchdown and everything. That was his highlight moment, but I still think he sucks. But but overall, the defense played phenomenal. Petrie, man, great game. Petrie, Harris, great game. Hanson, great game. It was just a great game, all over. And I felt for the fans, even our fans that had to sit outside and watch that game in the cold. It was cold as hell. It was cold as hell. But hey, I can't wait for the Jags game on Sunday, man.
Yeah, my only thing is I know the Texans are the one of the least penalized teams in the NFL. Like, they turn it around completely, which I appreciate that. But guys, quit getting a penalty when you score a touchdown. It seems like every time they score a touchdown, it gets called back because of a penalty. Like, come on, guys! Like, give me a break. Quit giving me a heart attack. Like, I'm already bald enough. Like, quit giving me a reason to pull my hair out. But like, I'm piggyback off BT says the tackling was sloppy in the first half. Lovie Smith did a great job of saying, "Hey, let's wrap up." I think the only time that we didn't tackle great in the second half was the Malik Willis touchdown. It seemed like he was playing pinball on us, just all over. But what was it? I want to ask you a question, guys. Everybody's saying that the slapping the face mask was face mask, and I think Malik Willis was kind of doing his best LeBron James, impersonation of flopping. But what was it, a clean hit, or what? What do you think? B. Scott, start with you. You think it was a clean hit?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I'm glad that it went the way that it did, because it truly is one of those where you could make the argument either way. So if it had been called the other way, if there had been a flag there, it would have been hard for us to really make the case of, well, nah, not really. That's a clean hit. You know what I mean? But since the call wasn't made, you could also say, well, he hit him, but he ain't really grabbed the face mask. So it's one of those real subjective calls that, like, it's one of those where you can see why this isn't something that would be challenged, right? Or because it's subjective. It could be all four of us could have a different answer to the question, and still be reasonable minds. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I looked at it. A reasonable minds can disagree on that. I thought he just hit him, and you just kind of play on. Sometimes, okay. And I'm a basketball guy too, so y'all have to forgive me for a basketball reference here. But sometimes when you have a collision and a bang bang play, you just gotta play on. You don't bail out the defender and call a charge. You don't bail out the offensive player, or
let it play.
Either way, you just let the guys let them play. Let them play sometimes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, before we head out here,
wait, hold on. That was Malik Collins, right? That did that.
Yeah, I thought it was was it? Okay, I thought it was Lopez, but all right.
Oh, you know what? It might have been because Malik Collins be out here being ready to murder guys.
Yeah, well, that's back-to-back weeks. Our defense got away with something.
Yeah, because he slung Patrick Mahomes. Now I'll defend that because it was violent, and if I was a Chiefs fan, I wouldn't have liked it. Yeah, but that was a legal play.
Yeah,
that was a legal play
because he fumbled the ball.
He started running.
Yeah, he was a runner. He was not a protected player at that point. And to Patrick Mahomes' credit, we had him in the post game, and we got to ask him about that. And Patrick Mahomes was just like kind of a G with it. He was like, "Look, that dude threw me pretty easily, and next time, like, he didn't try to like, make an excuse for it. He said, next time, I'm gonna try to avoid that guy."
Good stuff. Well, guys, before we end the show, real quick, let's talk to the Jaguars at the Texans. We got our first win couple months back. B. Scott, real quick, what is your prediction of the game, and do we walk out with a W?
Man, so I did this segment earlier on the radio, and just in case anybody doesn't know about me and just sort of how my general get down is, I'm not here for tanking. I'm not a tanking guy. I don't like it. I tell people also, like, in real life, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So, like, I hope that we're all here together, live and well and healthy, come April when the draft comes and we're talking about draft picks and all of that and having a good time with it. But man, life has humbled me in a way that I can't tell you for sure that I'm gonna be here in April, or that either one of y'all is gonna be here in April. We just don't know what it's gonna be like. I like living in the moment. I like having moments to celebrate, to feel good the following day when your team wins a football game. To me, that there is value in that, especially given how short life is, and not to make the podcast super serious or bring down the energy or anything, but that's reality. Like, we not promised nothing. So as far as my football team goes, something that doesn't really actually matter in the grand scheme of things, like it just matters to us personally, I want to see the team win. Okay, like that makes me feel good, and I will never apologize to anybody for feeling good on any given moment for any given reason. But that being said, man, it's not really healthy to win this game. It's not. It's just not like. And not to contradict myself. And again, I said all that to say I'm not really oriented in this way to just be like constant evaluator and like, hey, well, we need to do this so we can do that, and just like means to an end guy. Like I want to have a feeling after the game, and for that feeling to be good. So from that standpoint, of course, you want to win the game, and I do feel like. Well, not even I feel like. Let's just state the facts. The Texans have the Jaguars' number over the last few years. Like if there's anything we can say as a Houston sports fan base, especially as football fans, especially as Texans fans, it's that part about owning the Jaguars. Come hell or high water, for better or worse, they have owned these guys. And so from that standpoint, it's hard to honestly envision them not winning against the Jaguars, especially at home, especially here. So you figure, okay, that's got to happen. But when you evaluate it for what it is and what the Jaguars are and what they've just been an excellent football team over the last, let's call it 4 to 5, 6 weeks or so, however long it's been since they've sort of picked things up. Trevor Lawrence has started to figure things out. Always did like the pairing with Peterson, with Doug Peterson as the offensive play caller, and I guess you could call it the mastermind of what they're trying to do. I think I talked earlier about things being instructive for Texans fans and for the Texans. Look at what the Jaguars are doing there, where they made an obvious choice with their quarterback. Okay, now there is no Trevor Lawrence in this draft. I'm not trying to be silly here. I get that. But they made the obvious choice with their quarterback, number 1 overall. Righted a wrong, did the best that they could to right a wrong with a poor head coaching decision that they made in hiring Urban Meyer and punting on that very early on. And to me, it is not an accident or not a coincidence that now that they have their quarterback and their head coach, now they finally are worth a damn. They finally look like they're headed in some type of direction that they can feel good about, Jacksonville fans. So bringing it back to the point of this game, both teams, funny enough, are ascending, are playing better than what the rap was on them when they played the last time. The Texans obviously haven't just won one game, but playing well over the last 3 weeks in comparison to how they had played before. But then the Jaguars being one of the hotter teams in football, I don't think you can discount that. I think we can have our cake and eat it too in this game, guys. And this is what I mean by this. The Texans can go in there, come in here. I'm right here where the game is going to be. The Texans can come in here and play a good football game, watchable, respectable, physical football, okay, something that we can all feel good about as a product, and still not win this game because the Jacksonville Jaguars are slightly ahead of them right now in the rebuild process. And I think that would be the most ideal outcome and scenario for them to come out, not thoroughly embarrass themselves as they have at various different times right here in this stadium, in NRG Stadium, a la the Tennessee game, a la the damn Washington Commanders game where they're giving up the ball on the second play of the game. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something that all of us feel good about as a product, but at the same time, they lose the game to a better opponent and go ahead and secure that number 1 draft pick. And then we can fight in the offseason amongst ourselves on what they should do with it. We can have that healthy debate, disagree, cuss and discuss, as my man Chris Turner at Sports Radio 610 likes to say. We can do that on the back end. But let's go ahead and take care of business, not embarrass ourselves, okay? Because I'm not about that. Not embarrass ourselves, but not win this game. That's what I truly think. And I'm not just trying to project that or speak that into existence. I truly think that's what's going to happen. The Texans are going to play a better brand of football as they have over the last few weeks, but also are not quite as good as I know they beat them earlier in the year, but the Jaguars I don't think had ascended to where they are right now. And so more than likely, that's what happens. The Texans play a respectable game. The Jaguars win it.
All right. BT, what about you? What you got?
So I kind of believe what B. Scott's saying. If you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's had a roller coaster of a year there were times where they thought, oh, look, Trevor Lawrence is back. And then he started losing. It's like, nope, looks like we didn't, Trevor Lawrence isn't that franchise quarterback guy. And now we're back to where we were in the beginning of the year. The dude is balling out. The dude has an incredible TD-INT ratio right now. The dude is throwing 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, running in one. He is obviously a better quarterback than Davis Mills is at this point. In the offseason, we had a different mindset. And because Trevor Lawrence is being coached up by Doug Peterson, the Jags have a shot at winning any game. As they won the Cowboys game, they were down and they came back. And I think that the Jags of yesteryear are not the Jags that we are going to play this week. I think the game will be close. And as B. Scott said, we will not embarrass ourselves. But I also don't think we're going to try to tank. I just think that we will be outplayed because the Jags are better coached, better roster, better offense, and slightly better defense than us overall. And so I think we'll lose. I think we'll lose by not even a touchdown. I think we'll lose by a field goal or so, by 3 points. But I think it's a loss. I don't think that we're intentionally tanking. And when we get to the next week's podcast, my answer will not be the same because I do not believe that this team is tanking. However, we will not win this particular game.
Crenshaw, speak to me, brother. What you got?
Like B. Scott said, I ain't tanking. I want my team to win so I can have a victory Monday, but I don't want them to win this Sunday. So I need those 3 picks in the first 32. I don't need them trying to play hero ball. I don't need them second guessing like, well, maybe Lovie's this, Lovie's that. I don't need none of that. Let's lose the game, but respectfully lose the game. That's my take. Lose it, but respectfully lose it.
Nah. Well, beginning of the podcast, beginning of the year, guys, I told y'all we're going to split with the Colts, split with the Titans, and sweep the Jags. Right now, it's looking pretty good. I'm looking like Notre Dame out there. So far I'm right. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. I hope we split with the Jags. I hope we lose this one. But I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be close. We've been playing our competition at a better play. So I think, like BT says, I think we lose by 4 or 5 points.
Hey, but you know what? You know what though? I'm fine with them winning as long as the Bears go out and win too.
Right. And the Colts. Right.
For every game that the Texans win, need the Bears to win it too. Now ideally, at least for the number 1 pick purposes, Texans lose, Bears win, and then that last game is far less stressful because if we were having this conversation a week from now, and if y'all were to ask me what do I think is going to happen with that Colts game, I think they can win that bad boy.
Mm-hmm. Nah,
I think they can win that one. So
we don't need to win that one either.
Really need them to either lose this one, perfectly lose this one, Bears win, no conversation. But if they do win, if they do beat the Jaguars, I need the Bears to win out, baby. I need the Bears to do their part for sure.
Same. Well, guys, what a great episode. Brandon, man, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure. We're definitely gonna have you back on. Tell the folks where we can find you on social media and what you got working on.
Yeah, so I'm at Brandon K. Scott on Twitter. I am at B Scott from Hiram Clark on Instagram. That's where you can find me. That's Clark with an E at the end. If you are not initiated, if you are not from Houston, that's my hood. That's where I'm from.
I love it.
So I'm repping over there. But other than that, I do the B Block podcast weekly. Adam Spillane, my colleague over at Sports Radio 610, and I know this is a Texans podcast, but if you're into basketball, if you follow the Rockets, they are similarly situated with the Texans right now, trying to get out the muck. Adam and I are covering that every week at the H-Town Hoops podcast. You can find that anywhere where you get your podcast. And for the rest of the week, I don't know when you guys are going to hear this and when you see this, but for the rest of the week, I will be in studio doing In the Loop, filling in on In the Loop from 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610. We're going to have Malik Collins on the show, fresh off the practice field. He's going to call in. So if y'all want to check that out, that'll be Thursday. I'm not exactly sure what hour, but the show is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Some point during the show, if you listen, we'll let you know exactly when Malik is going to be on. But Malik Collins is going to join us on In the Loop on Thursday. So make sure y'all check that out. Yeah, man. And other than that, like Sports Radio 610, social media and website, just in case y'all don't know exactly what I do and like who I am, that is me. I am that, and that is me. So in case you are ever wondering, it's either me or something that I'm allowing to happen. Okay. So like it's either something that I'm doing or Tyler Miller or in Landry Locker or somewhere in the background causing some mischief that I've authorized in some sort of way. So it's one or the other, but make sure y'all are checking us out, no doubt.
Well, Brady, you need to give him a shout out. Tell him that the guys at the Texans fan battle love him, and you know we love the hit on Patrick Mahomes. So you know,
yeah,
give us some love from us.
We will for sure be discussing that hit, no doubt about it. So look forward to that, and also in case I didn't say this earlier, man, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be considered for stuff like this. For y'all to think of folks who do we want to be on the show. And for my name to come up, man, that means a lot to me. So
it's an honor to have you on here, man.
Think of me anytime, and I'll do it for sure.
B Scott, I got two things for you. I mean, you can answer it on the show or once the show's over. One is Jack Yates still the best high school?
Yeah, you know what? For my money, and I'm assuming with you being Fifth Ward that you a Wheatley guy. But
I actually went the Wild Trip. Even though I'm from Fifth Ward, but I went the Wild Trip.
Hey, and look, and I'm from Hiram Clark, and I too went to Wild Trip. Okay, I finished there. I went to Yates. This is a real long story, not for the podcast, but I ended up at Wild Trip. Long story short, because I was getting into too much trouble, and they needed to send me somewhere where I wasn't as familiar with the lay of the land, and they like, well, we're gonna send his ass to the north side. He don't know what's going on over there. I graduated from Wild Trip in 2007.
Okay. I came out in 2002.
Okay, yep, you're a little bit before me, but yeah, I came out of Wild Trip in 2007. So it's funny, we from different hoods, but we ended up in the same place graduating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Both Wild Trip cats. Yep. Wild Trip class 07.
And the second thing, how was Beaumont Enterprise?
Oh man, now that is a story for sure that is post-block. But I'll tell y'all this though. I don't know how familiar y'all are with Brooks Cabanas' work at the Houston Chronicle, but Brooks and I, just to kind of bring everything back together, before any of y'all knew who either one of us was, Brooks and I worked together at the Beaumont Enterprise in what we would both describe to y'all as like a journalism boot camp. You know, like we were getting paid, making a living and all of that, barely, but it was very important. I would say, I don't want to speak for Brooks, but we'll say for myself, very important in our development, in my development. And I would venture to say the same for him. He would probably tell you the same thing. It was a tough and difficult time because the newspapers are dying, and Beaumont, I hate to say it like this, but Beaumont feels like at times like it's dying. And so the whole energy around it just didn't feel great. It was a challenge, man. If I'm honest with you, it was a challenge staying motivated. Nothing like it is now, where you look around and you're like, man, if this is work, if going out judging tailgates and drinking beer with the people is work, you know what I'm saying? If hanging out in the Sports Radio 610 suite on Sundays, lamenting about the Texans and their rebuild, if that's work, I'll take it. You know, it'll come a long way from the Beaumont Enterprise days, man. But I am not here without it. I can tell you that. The long story short, I am not here talking to you guys in this moment without doing that.
Respect. All right. Well, enjoy that game behind you, and while you see some Texans PR, you need to tell them to give us some love. We've been trying to get some guys on the podcast, but they're not give us any love. So you need to tell them Texas fan battle, help them out.
Yeah, I'll put in a good word best I can. They barely listen. They just kind of look at me and laugh too. And like, I say what I can. I do what I can. Put in a good word.
BT, what about you? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brown Chubby Bear. And you can find me on Reddit at Chubby Brown Bear. We actually started our own subreddit at Texans Fan Battle. So it's not so you don't have to go to just the Texans subreddit. You can go to the Texans Fan Battle subreddit. So we started growing it, and it's about almost 50 users already. I'd like to grow it in the next month or so to like 500 people. So go on Reddit and join that. You can also go to TexansFanBattle.com and read my latest article. Trust me, I have a point. I have an argument. I'm not just hating on Bryce Young, but the last article is titled "Why the Houston Texans Will Not Draft Bryce Young."
Oh, great stuff. Crenshaw, where can we find you at, brother?
Man, you can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw, Instagram, Twitter. That's where your boy gonna be at.
All right. And you can find me at 81 Day One Texans. And of course, you can find the podcast everywhere at Texas Fan Battle. Make sure you follow us on TikTok. B's been doing a good job on that. Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. And you want to listen to B. Scott on our podcast, just say, hey, Alexa, play the Texans Fan Battle, and you get the dopest Texans podcast there is. So, guys, thank you again for coming on and listening. B. Scott, it's been an honor, man. Thank you for coming on. And
Pleasure.
Definitely have to do this. Until next week, guys, we'll see you later.
Thank you. Go Texans.